Good evening. I caught her with their mouth filled, so I'll let the two for like 3, 2, 1. Good evening. Thank you. I'm not going to speak for very long. I just want to introduce our speaker for the evening, who joins us from Marathon County, County Board Supervisor in District 5.
Kind of evolved from there.
So we're going to bring Kala up from Walsall. And
Why?
I'm all a lot of introductions. I'm sure you do a great job. Which is a lot of work into our speech. That's why we didn't see your breakouts today. I'm sorry. And then after Kala, if you're a candidate, you're an OWR member, and you're in the room, or if you're a candidate wrangler, we are going to give our OWR members who are running for office 2 minutes to get up here and tell you who they are, where they're from, why they're running, and what motivated them, hopefully the OWR members, and what motivated them to run, what kind of things they speech. So without further ado, thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Great. Good. Okay. Well, I am so grateful and so honored to be speaking to you all today. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever dream to be asked to speak at a state convention. So, thank you. So, my name is Kala, and I'm from Wausau, Wisconsin. I was born and raised in Wausau, and I was elected in April of this year, and I am a first-term County Board Supervisor for Marathon County. I was really surprised when I was asked to attend as a guest of our Wisconsin Revolution. I asked, of all people to ask, why me? There are way more influential people in Wausau and north of Wausau than myself. But I'm not gonna complain about it, so. So on the phone, I was like really super low key, but I didn't accept it right away. And I said I would think about it and get back. But of course I was going to accept. But progressives demand a lot. And I'll talk about those demands later. So, a show of hands, who here lives north of Wausau? One. All right, we have one person in the room. Well, everyone, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Wausau is not northern Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin is north of Merrill, which is a city that is about 20 minutes from Wausau. But depending on how quote-unquote northern you are, some may not even consider the north to start at Merrill. To be completely honest, my views are going to be different from the average northern Wisconsinite. Because the average northern Wisconsinite is pale and male. I may know some things about the habits of the average northern Wisconsinite, but that's only because I've dated a few of them. And as you can see, I am neither pale nor male. Even though I admit that I will have different views from white northern Wisconsinites, we are more similar than different. These are the characteristics that tie myself and northern Wisconsinites together. First of all, I am Hmong. And the Hmong are very much like northern Wisconsinites. The Hmong are a minority group who used to live in the mountains of Laos, far from the lowland Laotian inhabitants. Because the Hmong lived in the mountains, we were thought of as uneducated and simple-minded. Hmong people were farmers, hunters, and self-sufficient. And family is everything. Northern Wisconsinites are thought of as uneducated and simple-minded. Northern Wisconsinites are farmers, hunters, and are self-sufficient. And family is everything. The Hmong are independent and gritty. So are Northern Wisconsinites. The Hmong are not afraid to tell you like it is, and so do Northern Wisconsinites. But at the same time, the Hmong can be the most hospitable people you will ever meet. We will invite you to our table, put you at the head of the table, and give you the biggest piece of meat with a heaping bowl of warm rice. Northern Wisconsinites will invite you to our table, put you at the head of the table, and give you the biggest piece of meat and a heaping side of warm potatoes. I told you some of the good things about Northern Wisconsinites, so you're probably wondering why Northern Wisconsinites voted for Donald Trump. But first, I want to remind you all one thing. Northern Wisconsinites voted for a progressive first. In the primary, between all the presidential candidates, Democratic and Republican, a progressive received the most votes. Between the Democratic candidates, a progressive won all the counties except for one county. Anyone want to know what county that was? Milwaukee. Wisconsinites in southern Wisconsin and Wisconsinites in northern Wisconsin voted for Bernie Sanders. So, before anyone criticizes northern Wisconsin for voting for Trump, I want you all to remember that before northern Wisconsin voted for Trump, they voted for a progressive first. So why did northern Wisconsinites vote for a progressive, then turned around and voted for a demagogue? I don't know for sure. I cannot speak for, and I may not know how people in northern Wisconsin feel. But I can tell you what I see and the thoughts of the average working person in Wausau. I feel people in northern Wisconsin are literally stuck. It's not that we don't love where we live, because we do, but we live in a bubble. Some things you should know about Wausau to give you an idea of our bubble. Up until Hmong refugees came to Wausau in the late 1970s, Wausau was the most homogeneous community in Wisconsin. Everyone was white. Studies showed that people who lived in that area had never left the area in their entire lives, whether that was for pleasure or for work. So I lived in Milwaukee from 2002 to 2006. And then when I came home to visit, I noticed that there were more Black people and Latino people living in Wausau. So think about this. Approximately 40 years ago, Wausau received their first group of minorities, the Hmong. And then approximately less than 20 years ago, Wausau started seeing Blacks and Latinos in their neighborhoods. This is a short history lesson of the condition of Wausau for you. Northern Wisconsin remains very pale and male, and it is more reflective of how Wausau was in the 1970s. Now, back to why I think Northern Wisconsin voted for the current president. How many people here have heard of the United Way Alice report? 1, 2, 3, 4. So a few. So ALICE stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. According to the United Way, ALICE represents the nearly 670,000 Wisconsin residents of all ages and races who get up each day to go to work, but who aren't sure they will be able to put dinner on the table each night. They are your child care worker, home health aide, store clerk, or food service employee, all workers who are essential to you and our community's success. The latest ALICE report was released in September 2016, and the report is based off of data from 2014. According to a short summary of the ALICE report, about 42% of households in Wisconsin struggle to afford basic household necessities. Now that is a difference of 8% from reaching half of Wisconsin. 13% live in poverty, and 29% are ALICE households. So these are people who work, but still may not make enough to put dinner on the table. Those who fall into the ALICE category are married and single parents, all age groups, are all throughout Wisconsin, and represent all sections of Wisconsin's population. The most important thing you should remember, though, is that the federal poverty level hasn't been updated since the 1970s. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But even if I'm wrong, we can all agree as progressives that the federal poverty level is too low. As progressives, we all believe in Fight for 15. We all believe in a living wage. But if you take into accordance the current rising prices and low wages, a living wage is more than $15 an hour. As progressives, I believe we need to aim higher. We all think within a box of parameters, and we all need to stop thinking that way. For example, a good progressive friend of mine, Tom, said to me, which made me rethink the whole idea of quote-unquote living wage. He asked me, why are we only settling for a living wage? Why aren't we fighting for a thriving wage? Are we asking for too much? And the answer is no, we are not asking for too much. We are asking for a sustainable and growing way of life. That is what we are asking for. We should not settle to merely exist. So progressives, I encourage you to think outside of the box and to ask yourself, whenever you are thinking of social injustices in your world, in your local realm, are we asking for too much? And I can guarantee you the answer will always be no. Another report that I like to refer to is the LIFE report. It is also administered by the United Way. So in the LIFE report, it has provided me with specific information on the condition of Marathon County residents. According to the latest LIFE report, 51.7% of residents live in poverty, and our schools in Marathon County serve more than 30% of children who live below the federal poverty line. In some instances, it is above 70%. Incomes in Marathon County have not kept up with inflation. With the rise in cost of housing and childcare and income staying stagnant, that is why when the Marathon County Board voted for raises for themselves and the salary of the chair was to double, I was appalled. If only the residents of Marathon County could do the same thing and vote for raises for themselves, I'm pretty sure we would all be living better lives. While more than 50% of Marathon County residents live in poverty, the county board voted to give themselves raises. Isn't that what the progressive uproar is all about? When people pay themselves with taxpayers' money while the taxpayer is living in poverty. So fun fact, Marathon County is the largest county in Wisconsin. So if the largest county in Wisconsin is more than 50% living in poverty, and keep in mind, the federal definition of poverty needs to change, then what does that mean? What does that say about northern Wisconsin? Northern Wisconsin is usually very sparsely populated. Locals say that their backyards are Chicago's playground during the summer. Their playgrounds are large mansions, which they only live in for 3 months out of the year, while locals suffer from the increase in local property taxes due to some out-of-towners' need to have another big mansion 6 hours north of their other big mansion to prove that they live in 2 places at the same time. While it may not be obvious in Marathon County, the economic divide is certainly obvious in the north. So what does that say about the condition of the state of Wisconsin? You can bet your bottom dollar that you can gauge the state of Wisconsin based on Marathon County. I believe the reason why northern Wisconsin voted for the current president is because when Sanders was unfairly pushed out at the Democratic National Convention to be the people's candidate, northern Wisconsinites angrily said again, "That is not fair." Now the message for the Democratic Party. When you play dirty, you will lose. The North will remember. Yeah. Northern Wisconsinites know all too well about being treated unfairly. Regularly, we are forgotten by our state government to the south while they make their presence known in Milwaukee and Madison. Our tax dollars go to Madison, and then when Dane and Milwaukee County get the most money out of the money pot, and then our roads and schools crumble. As a new highway is being built in Milwaukee, northern Wisconsinites wonder, do we belong to the political narrative, or are we just funding a government that has forgotten us? When Sanders was pushed out, we lost the voice that represented our future. And so we replaced him with Trump. Because he was now speaking to fears, and he made us believe that he would save us. Out of desperation, I believe that northern Wisconsinites voted for the current president out of spite, anger, and fear. The Democratic Party was the party for the working people, or at least the people. They proved during the presidential election that they are not anymore. Another fun fact. On the national level, Marathon County has the largest county board in the nation, 38 members, and I represent District 5. And my last fun fact, the chair of our county board, who voted for the increase in pay for county board members while Marathon County residents live in poverty, was just elected to represent the state of Wisconsin at the National Association of Counties. Please pay attention to your county's business. What happens or doesn't happen in your county directly affects what happens in the state legislature and vice versa. What happens or doesn't happen in your county affects state elections. For example, mining. Just this past Tuesday, we voted on mining. A topic that came up during debate was, voting no would mean we could lose local control over mining, meaning that the state could come in and take over mining jurisdiction. I believe that our mining resolution was too weak. 2 amendments to the resolution came up. The first one was for a conditional use permit, which would allow for public hearings. And the second was that the distance between an inhabited structure and the location of where the mining work was to be done was to be changed from 100 feet to 500 feet. And the 2 amendments failed. The mining resolution, as it was originally written, passed. The feeling that I got was that the board was afraid the state would come in and take over if we did not pass the resolution. I understand the fear of other board members of losing control. I understand that. So be it, the mining resolution passed. and I understand. But I was also wishing that the mining would not have passed. And so that if the Walker administration wanted to come in and take over the county, let them. It would only further prove that the Walker administration has no intention of letting local government govern themselves. There's the governor's election coming up in November. Let the people decide. Does the governor really mean it when he says he believes in local control? When Scott Walker was elected as governor, I had just graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Marathon County, which is a 2-year school in Wausau. There was a belief about UW-Marathon County when I went to school there that if you passed at UW-Marathon County, whichever school you went to afterwards, public, private, or Ivy League, you were going to be successful. I then attended University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, which is a 4-year university 30 minutes south of Wausau. I was a secondary education major, and I wanted to teach history classes in high school. I chose to go to Stevens Point for secondary education because UW-Stevens Point was the best school to go to for primary and secondary education majors. The courses were rigorous and produced some of the best teachers in the nation. Then, Act 10 happened. The reason why I wanted to become a teacher was because I enjoyed making a difference in young people's lives, and because I thought by teaching history, I could open up a young adult's mind to the injustices of the world and how those injustices were defeated and why that was so important. The last reason was because I knew that being a teacher in the state of Wisconsin was a good and respectable occupation. But when Act 10 happened, it all went out the window. I went to speak to my advisor. Essentially, he said, well, by the time you become a teacher, you wouldn't have all the benefits of what a teacher has now, so you wouldn't know what you're missing out on anyways. Hogwash. Total and complete hogwash. But the next day, I dropped the secondary education part, and then I was just strictly a history major. Because of the state and national attack on our teachers, our kids will never get the same education and experiences that we got. I had passionate and caring teachers that I still remember to this day. Wisconsin was the leading state when it came to public education on all levels. And now, since the current governor, Wisconsin is on par with some of the lowest performing states in the nation. We are not better. We are worse off. So what do progressives demand? We demand to live. Like my friend said, thrive. I really think that in all seriousness, we all demand happiness. I will never forget one of my professors at the University of Wisconsin-Marathon County, what he said in class. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson states, "We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The other side argues that healthcare is not a right, that it is a privilege. So let me ask, when you are sick, are you happy? When your loved one is sick, are you happy? Healthcare is the pursuit of happiness. Our forefathers declared to King George that Americans have the right to happiness and that healthcare is a right. So progressives, these are our beliefs, and it is our responsibility to be the example and be the progressive activist to make these things happen. Because I believe it is important to show other people that these things can happen. So I run and facilitate a progressive dance group in Wausau. In the last year and a half that this small group has come together, we brought a neighborhood of small people together and convinced the city council to not change the zoning code on a small piece of land for a quick trip, to save a low-income housing building in which people who lived there had been homeless and or were in a drug recovery program which they were trying to put their lives back together. When John Ossoff was running in Georgia, we joined the campaign to help make phone calls. Judith, which is here up in front, she single-handedly planned an Earth Day celebration and invited One Wisconsin Now director Scott Ross to Wausau to make a presentation. And we are currently helping and supporting a local neighborhood group to demand that the city council do more environmental and soil testing in their neighborhood due to years of corporate contamination. In the past week, Senator Tammy Baldwin's office has reached out to us and has asked us for more information to make sure the city is following federal guidelines. We have learned how to write and lobby our progressive resolutions at congressional district conventions and win at the local and state level. That is what we've done in the past year and a half. So those are just some of the actions and wins that the small progressive group in Wausau has done, and it can be done. So, Northern Wisconsinites are progressive. They may not actually say the words, "I am a progressive." They might even deny it. But their desires and their beliefs are progressive in nature and value. So, in closing, I hope that I've been able to offer you a small look into the condition of Northern Wisconsin, and thank you so much for offering me the opportunity to speak today.